I thought Feed the Scorchpot was going to be a simple little dice game that I could play once and probably never touch again. Then I spent the next 2 hours getting repeatedly humbled by a dragon. So, I was wrong. Feed the Scorchpot is a dice rolling strategy game that released on Steam on August 20th, 2026. The game normally costs $14.99, but I was able to pick it up during a 20% off sale for $11.99, but for this review, I'm going to just judge it based off of the full price. So, what is Feed the Scorchpot? At first glance, the game looks a little too familiar for me. I'm a big fan of Settlers of Catan, and Feed the Scorchpot immediately reminded me of that. After playing it, there are definitely some similarities in how this game is structured. You'll place farmsteads at intersecting points between different tiles, roll dice, and harvest ingredients based on those rolls. But collecting ingredients isn't the only part. You also need to pay attention to multipliers, called flavor and essence, which you can increase by creating different recipes. Each year gives you a limited number of seasons, which essentially determines how many harvests you have before the end of that year ends. At the end of the year, your ingredients and multipliers determine your total score. That's where the dragon comes in. Every year, the dragon has a hunger number that you need to beat. Score higher than its hunger, and you survive another year. Don't feed the dragon enough, and it's game over. The ultimate goal is to survive until year 20. Although you can keep playing beyond that if you really want to see how far you can make it. Learning the game is actually a very simple concept, and initially I was worried that it might be a little too simple. I started with the tutorial, and I have to give the game credit here because I think the tutorial is actually done really well. Instead of throwing a bunch of text boxes at you before you can actually play, the tutorial starts you in a real game and teaches you as you go. It walks you through where and how to place your farmstead, how harvesting works, how to upgrade, and how to improve your multipliers. This actual teaching portion probably lasts around 10 to 15 minutes, and after that the game basically says, alright, now that you know what you're doing, good luck. There's also an option to skip the tutorial entirely, which I always appreciate. My entire first game took me around an hour, and I managed to make it all the way through without much trouble, and that's actually where I thought I had this game figured out. But I was very, very wrong. After finishing that first game, my immediate thought was, that was fun, but I don't really see myself playing this again. Then I went back to the main menu, and that's when I realized there were additional game modes, new challenges, and different dragons that needed to be fed. My first game wasn't difficult, so I figured I'd try and knock out a couple more, and this game just humbled me over and over and over again. Suddenly, I wasn't cruising my way to year 20 anymore. In fact, I couldn't even really get past year 10. There were runs I had where I barely even got past year 3. So naturally, I just kept trying and again, and I kept changing my strategy, trying different combinations, placing things differently, and trying to figure out what I needed to do to survive those first few years. And before I realized it, another hour had gone by, and that's where this game really surprises me. The mechanics are super simple to understand, but once the game starts changing the conditions you're playing under, there's actually a decent amount of strategy involved with figuring out how to make those mechanics work in your favor. Visually, I think the game knows exactly where it wants to be. Everything is hand-drawn and nothing feels out of place. It's not trying to overwhelm you with flashy graphics. It's a simple art style that fits in a cozy medieval setting really well. And the music complements the atmosphere too. And the whole thing feels very cohesive. It's just a nice game to look at and listen to while you're playing. I would say my biggest issue isn't that the game doesn't do anything wrong, it's more about how I personally want to play it. Even after realizing there's more challenging and replayability here than I initially thought, I don't think that Feed the Scorchpot would actually hold my attention for very long as like a dedicated PC session. I would probably want a YouTube video or a podcast or a stream or something else going on alongside it, but maybe I'm just too far gone when it comes to brain rot. And I actually don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing for this type of game, because Feed the Scorchpot feels like this kind of game would be perfect for shorter sessions. For me, yeah, I think this game is worth the $14.99. I think there's enough here to at least get a few hours of entertainment out of it, especially once you've moved beyond the first game and start taking on harder challenges. If you enjoy cozy games, dice games, or even light strategy games where you can quickly understand the rules, but still have to figure out how to win. I think there's a lot to like here. And honestly, I think something like that on the Steam Deck is going to be the perfect way to play this game. I wouldn't necessarily see myself sitting down at my computer specifically just to play Feed the Scorchpot for 3 or 4 hours, but picking up a Steam Deck on the couch, playing a few runs in bed, or just bringing it along when I'm going out somewhere, I could definitely see myself coming back and playing it that way. So Feed the Scorchpot is simple to learn, much harder than I originally gave it credit for, and apparently a very effective way to get bullied by a hungry dragon. So for $14.99, I would say that it's worth it. If you made it all the way to the end, I wanted to just take a second and say thank you. This was my first time reviewing any video game and making it into a video. I had a fun time doing it, and if you enjoyed it as well, then please subscribe.